me show you what we got here. This is a door panel from a 1975 Pontiac Firebird. It's the Esprit model, so it's got what I think is called the deluxe interior. But this process will work for any, door panel that's two-part and any dyeing of any car piece. This is going to work. So let me show you what we have here. Pretty typical for that older sun-dried material. We're going to take care of that with some sandpaper, and then the rest of this really is looking like it's in pretty good shape. It's just dirty and nasty. So let me show you the backside. I'm not seeing really any cracks. Even the location here for the screw isn't cracked and broken off, although this side is, but that's okay. I think we'll just use a larger washer. We're missing a couple of these square nuts. Not a big deal. And I've got some new Christmas tree fasteners. But the biggest thing that I'm noticing on the backside here is this plastic piece could use a little bit of work. I see one crack there. And then of course the window sweep is hard as a rock. So this is gonna have to come off and be replaced with the new ones that I have. But here's one from the other side. You can see that, these things just get dry rotted and break to pieces. So that is not good. So we're gonna go ahead and take this apart and then we'll start cleaning it up. So the first thing I wanna do is separate this bottom piece from the top piece. It's kind of floppy. So really just for stability, I'm gonna take that out. And these little square nuts, you'll figure these out. They've just got a couple metal flaps, one on each side. And I just pry them up just a little bit to release that tension. And then once that's done, you can get underneath and pop it off. So theoretically, we got those off. We saved our clips to reuse them. This should just separate, no problem. And there we go. So this piece, we're just gonna take this rubber armrest off, and then it's not going to be flopping around. These are rubber tabs that have a lip on them. So I'm actually going to use this interior tool to push that through. Screwdriver I figured would be a little dangerous because of the sharp edge. So this will help push that little rubber lip right there through. If you don't have one of these, you can figure something out. I mean, a little tongue depressor stick or something like that would work. But that's that. We're going to set that aside so we can clean it up. So now we're going to go ahead and take off your pull strap. Just a couple Phillips head screws on this one. We're going to set this strap and these screws aside. And then our strap just comes undone. And then to get this apart, we'll go ahead and do that at this time. Just hardware slides right off. You see there's a tab that slides into that. So this one's going to need a little bit of persuasion. Yeah, we just had to lift that tab a little bit. So we can get these soaking. All right, we're looking pretty good here. I think the last thing I want to do to this panel before we inspect for repairs is to get this window sweep off. Now from the factory, you can see on the plastic here and all the way down through, there's these little staples. So we're either going to pry these up or just, cut them off with a little whiz wheel, whichever's safer. And then we can really inspect this plastic and the rest of the panel to see what kind of repairs we may need to do. So now we cut the heads off those staples. It just pops right off. Be careful with this plastic though, just go easy. And now we're left with just our staple heads that can be easily pulled through the bottom. And these side cuts seem to work pretty good with being able to grip that little nub and pull it on through. So we're gonna clean the rest of this up and I'll bring you back to show you what we got going on. So we're on a budget here. That's why I'm going through all of this. Obviously you can buy brand new stuff, but man, they're in the hundreds of dollars to get a full setup. And I'm just not into that when I can make these look pretty nice. So we will fix some plastic here. We got a nice crack there, one there, And then up here is not too bad, but there's a few spots that we're probably gonna clean up. So this is what we're gonna be using right here, some regular fiberglass resin, mat, and cloth. You know, I've got some of this left over from a job I did on the car, which was the hood. If you haven't seen that, go check that video out. It's on my channel. It's a multi-part series, tons of fun using fiberglass matting and cloth, and that hood turned out really great. It was one of my favorite projects on the car. But this is definitely gonna do the trick to strengthen up those places that have the cracks. And then before I apply that, real quick here, I'm just gonna go over these cracked areas, clean them, and then use some 80 grit or 60 grit, whatever the roughest grit sandpaper I have is, to get some tooth on here so that fiberglass material stick a little better. So I'm gonna go ahead and use both fiberglass cloth and matting on this repair. A combination of the two will really help build strength. But I've actually got a video on my channel in the difference between fiberglass cloth and mat, and when to use resin, regular fiberglass kit, and when to use epoxy resin. It's all good stuff. This is gonna make a really strong repair, and it should last for years and years. So I got my little resin measurer here, 2 ounces, and for each ounce it'll get 10 drops of the hardener, and we'll mix it up and dab it on. Try not to make a huge mess. So while the fiberglass matting and cloth's drying over there, I got started on this bottom piece, basically cleaned it off really good, and then I took some 80 grit and really started scuffing the areas that were super dry and that just fell off like powder, as you can see. You'll be able to tell the spots where that top surface layer is gonna sand real easy and just fall off. Now on the other spots, that texture where it was still well attached, you know, I just kind of scuffed it. But, you know, the flexibility in this panel is good and everything is solid with the panel. It's just the sun cooks that top coating and it just comes right off. So once I did that, I washed it with some Dawn dish soap, scoured it with red Scotch-Brite to just make sure we got all the nooks and crannies. And I'm getting ready to spray some adhesion promoter on there. So in doing this, we're just gonna do a couple 3 light coats and try to get good coverage on everything. All right, so for the next coat, we're gonna get some texture back on here to even things out. Now, they make a texture spray. SEM's got one. I think I saw it on Amazon for about 26 bucks. But I had this undercoating, and I've done a couple test spots on the back side here, and it looks like it's gonna do just fine for what I'm trying to do. Plus, on a budget, it was in the spray can box, so we're gonna try it, see what happens. Wish me luck. So we'll just let that dry and see what we think. Might knock it down a little bit with some sandpaper, but I think that'll work. So it's looking pretty good. Just thought I'd show it what it looks like before sanding. And it's probably just fine without, but over here I've been knocking down You can see just some high edges there. Or not edges, but high spots. So working it out, and then I'll put a coat of the satin black on there, and I think it's gonna look pretty good. Probably 3 coats of the satin black. I used the Duplicolor vinyl and fabric spray. Looks pretty good. You know, you can see some of my original sanding scratches, but when I hit it with the 400 to knock this down, you know, that all turned out really good. Did I really need to knock it down? I mean, I think it does look a little bit better, but really there's not a whole lot of difference. So anyways, there's some of those scratches that I could have spent a little more time with. That's probably the 180 grit. You know, maybe a filler primer would have been a good shot over top of that. But you know what? I'm good with it. And now that our fiberglass is all, you know, hardened up and everything is firmed up, that plastic piece is really, really good now. The next part of this process is just going to be to really clean this up. I'm going to go after it with some Dawn dish soap, and then we're going to use the red Scotch-Brite to kind of open up everything here, make sure we get all the good nooks and crannies. I'll do a wipe with an alcohol water solution to get any last bits of the residue off. So for the most part, the material on this looks really good. The stitching is not coming unraveled. There's no rips, tears, or anything like that other than right here. So what I'm gonna do is take some of this leftover material, it's a marine grade vinyl, from some of the other project work I've done on the interior, and I'm just gonna cut a small patch piece, and I'm gonna insert it up underneath of here, and I'm gonna use some of this Weldwood contact cement to be able to glue this down and have some backing material underneath of there to allow this to stick to. And then we'll see where we're at as far as these cracks. You know, we'll get a door lock ferrule cover, you know, trim piece or whatever that's gonna cover some of that. But yeah, let's just get this glued in and we'll see where we're at. So I actually just clipped this down here using some of these clamps, an extra piece of material. Let's see how we turned out here. So that turned out exactly as I wanted it. A little extra material to back this, but really these little creased edges are smushed flat and glued down. So I'm just gonna take a touch of 180 grit. I've got it bent over so I have a very small surface area to work with. And I'm just gonna kind of rough this up, but also knock down some of the high spots. And I may stick my finger up behind there to give it some pressure while I'm doing that. So we'll just kind of get this prepped. So just real gentle here. And again, I'm not really worried about the inside of that circle. I'm just focusing on sanding down the rough edges on the outside of these 3 little cracks. Just some 180 here, taking off the extra glue, smoothing up that, you know, that vinyl material a little bit. So yeah, I got all the high spots knocked down. And now I'm gonna use just kind of a general PVA glue for hobbies. You know, on the back here it says it's, you know, used on different fabrics and leather, most craft materials. So I think this will work as a good filler. It's quick and thick. You know, PVA glue is like, you know, general hobby glue, wood glue, but you know, this stuff here, I think is gonna be a little more flexible than just wood glue because it says it's for fabrics and leather. So let's try that out and fill in, you know, what's left of these cracks. And, you know, hopefully that's gonna be the ticket right there. All filled in, so we're just gonna go through the sandpaper grits again and smooth this out. So we've basically got all the glue off except for in the cracks we're trying to fill. Busted that down with some sandpaper, and now I'm just gonna use my 400 grit. And I'm just kind of going over, feathering it out a little bit just to kind of smooth up where I took off some of the texture. And yeah, 400 should be good enough grit to hopefully sand out any scratches. All right, so I've done my final wipes, knocked everything down really good with some dish soap, Windex again, and then the last wipe would have been my isopropyl alcohol wipe. And we'll follow up with our Duplicolor vinyl and fabric paint. And once we get to this part of the process, I'm gonna get you in a little closer and show you how I handle some of the overlapping seams. So this is what I wanted to show you. Right here, you've got kind of this bead that goes around, and this perforated material goes down underneath of it. So we want to make sure we get good color in there. So I just basically take a Bondo spatula. What the hell do you call this thing? I'm having a major brain fart. Bondo spreader thingamadoodle. And I just kind of hold that perforated material down enough to be able to spray a little bit in there. So we'll do that first and then come back and put our coats over top of it. All right, there we go. All right, once that tacks up, we'll put some more coats on until it looks good. I think that turned out pretty good for what it's worth. I could have spent some more time on it, I think. You know, maybe filling some of this in. A lot of it's just kind of where it's dimpled down. And of course, we'll have the ferrule on there that will cover all this ugliness here. But, you know, you may see a little bit stick out. But, you know, turned out pretty good. I think it'll work. And of course, the armrest and the pull strap turned out pretty good. Couple coat hook that while I had things going, I went ahead and painted these. A little bit of a haze on them because I just wiped them off. They were dusty, but yeah, they turned out really good. These are the sail panels for the back, and those hooks go right there. And then of course our bottom piece. So now the next step is to start reassembling the door panel. All right, as much as I want to see this thing all together with the bottom on here, we're gonna wait to do that just because we have more work to do on this top, and that'll help us a little bit in being able to manage this piece without the bottom on it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get this new window sweep attached. If you remember, the old one was so brittle that this just snapped off. So we got our nice new felt that the window's gonna ride on, nice chrome piece. And to line this up on here, there's actually an old line along the top where that chrome trim piece goes, and then the edges on this one that I have pretty much just line up. So real apparent how this thing needs to go on. But in order to attach it, you can drill and use staples like the factory did. However, we're gonna use a drill and some rivets and some clamps, and we're gonna get this thing attached. Okay, so we got the alignment all done. So you can see there I have a narrow vice grip on there to clamp that end down. Got our alignment all matched up on this side. Now it doesn't have to be perfect down here yet, but this side we want to get nice and aligned. And I'm just going to take my drill with an appropriate size drill bit for the rivet that we're going to use, and we'll put a hole. So you come in just under the felt of this sweep. Verify the alignment, and we'll throw a rivet in there. All right, there we go. Let's check it out. So that's all looking good. We'll just repeat the process now, moving in this direction and lining as we go, and get this thing attached, and then we can move on. The next thing we're going to work on is getting this pull strap installed. I'm going to run these across the buffer, and then I'll show you how the strap goes back into these buckles. Okay, so there's no left or right buckle, but basically this just goes through the top of that, and then the metal piece right here slides right in. So make sure you fish that through. I forgot how I'd taken these apart, and I was trying to do this and that and the other thing, but basically go through the buckle and then get your metal strap to lay on top of the chrome piece there. So to install it, we're gonna need this strap for support on the back, and then our screws are gonna shoot for this hole right here. And these are the screws that came out, these big fat-headed Phillips. So we'll go ahead and just get this flipped over and get this rod aligned and get our screws in. Now we'll go ahead and tighten them up from the back once we confirmed everything looks good. For the finishing touches on the door strap, I ordered this part from Classic Industries. A couple of mine were missing and the other ones were just garbage and cracked. But basically that just inserts into the buckle using this press fit nipple that goes into that hole. And that is our trim cover. Looking pretty good. So for the door lock ferrule, I got a couple of these kits from Dorman. I had to get two because each ferrule in this kit, there's two of them and they're two different sizes. So I wanted the big one. I could have ordered them separately from like Classic or off of Summit or Amazon even, but these worked out and they were local. So I'm gonna use the big one from here and I'm gonna color that white felt in with a black Sharpie. So this part's gonna be pretty straightforward. We're just gonna take a razor, really sharp one, and cut open our minimal opening that we need. We can press this in and then it's just got the little tabs on the back that will bend out to hold it in place. And that's exactly what I was hoping for. That larger ferrule from the Dorman kit covered most of the repair. Just a few little spots here that are sticking out, but should hardly be noticeable. Works for me. So now we're gonna switch back over to our plastic map pocket piece. And this is really simple, guys. There's these tabs on the bottom here and they just pull through the slots. Just be careful if your rubber is, you know, kind of worn out. You don't want to rip this, but it just installs pretty simply by putting those tabs in the holes and then we'll pull them through. So on these tabs, there's just a little bit of an edge on the very end that pulls through and hooks to the plastic. So to marry these up, we're going to use these clips. If you remember when we took it apart, there are these little square metal ones. I had some missing, so I just ordered some new ones from Classic Industries. So we'll just gently put these two pieces back together exactly how they came apart and get our clips on there. This is why I wanted some extra support and duct tape. So we'll get these installed and then I'll show you these Christmas tree clips. And looking at these two clips, really the differences are that this one's a little shorter. I don't think that's gonna matter, but I do think these are a little more rigid. So the top on these is, you know, really thin plastic, but it's a little thicker on here, so maybe it'll hold up a little better. So there we go. Now we're ready to finally put these door panels on the door. Been driving it for, almost a year. Well, 3/4 of a year with those metal door frames exposed, and you cut them and shut them, and I'm glad I have all my fingers. So it'd be real nice to have proper door panels on. There we go, looking pretty sweet. Reinstalls pretty straightforward. You hook that lip up over the top. I've got your brackets here that'll hook on to. Put your assorted screws and trim pieces in, and man, now we're talking. Both sides installed. All we got left to do is go for a ride. Catch me next time.